God 90 Radio on Demand. My name is Jerry Mitchell, your host for Give God 90. It's such an honor to have you join me for just a little while as I continue, believe it or not, to speak about Revelation. If you didn't listen to the last podcast from last Monday, you might want to go back and do that. It is titled, I'm going to talk about Revelation with some question marks there, because I don't usually do that. And in that, I tell you that I don't like to talk about Revelation because most people, when they think about Revelation, it's, oh, when does the end come, and when are we going to heaven, and all of that kind of thing. And that's not what Revelation is really about, believe it or not. There's more end-time eschatology, there's more end-time prophecy in the Old Testament than there is in Revelation. Okay, that's just the way life is. It's the way the book's written. And it's when I tell you how it's laid out and I explain it to you from a first century understanding, whether it's a Greek understanding or whether it is a Hebrew understanding. Once you grasp that it's from a first century understanding, and once you grasp that it's really written to those who think monotheistically, one God, versus polytheistically, many gods. I'm going to get into that and so much more. Okay, but first, let me remind you that if you have not downloaded the Give God 90 app, you can do so absolutely free. Also, go ahead. I know many of you are visiting the GiveGod90.com website. I appreciate that so much. Many of you are actually following those links, and we really appreciate that, because every time something happens through that website, we get information back, and it doesn't tell us who you are, so don't worry about your privacy. It just says somebody went from your website to my website, and we really appreciate it. That's what we like to see. Information trading hands, you gaining information, important information that you need to know to live the way you're designed to live by your Creator. Okay, let me dig in, and we're going to kind of back up a little bitty bit, because last time, remember, I was talking about the difference between the Greek polytheistic culture and the Jewish or Hebrew monotheistic culture. And why is this important? The biggest reason it's important is if you go back and you look at Exodus chapter 20. The Almighty introduces himself and he says probably the most important thing he comes up with right off the top of the list is, I am your God. You will have no other gods before me. You're not going to put any other gods in my face. You're not going to put any other gods, up against me. You're not going to show them to me. You're not going to act like them. Just don't have anything to do with them. That is really because he understands the way we are. He understood coming out of Egypt, the Hebrew, or that mixed multitude that came out of Egypt, had been exposed to the many gods of Egypt. Now let's fast forward a few hundred years, and we look at when Revelation was written. And what we see is now we have a Greek influence, and they have as many gods as it takes, right? I said this last time. When you have one creator God, if you need something done, and I use the example, if you need a rock to be moved, then you allow him to decide how he's going to move it. But if you have a Greek polytheistic society and you need a rock moved or something done, you call on as many gods as you need to get the job done. Big difference. This is because of all of the gods that how I got to be careful how that any of the other cultures looked at, any of the other cultures followed. All of the gods that, and it didn't matter whether it was the early Chaldeans, the Egyptians, the Greeks, the Romans, it didn't matter. There was one very, very dangerous God with a small g. This God is so absolutely destructive. It destroys families, communities, societies, and it can even destroy entire nations. But at the same time, this God is so insignificant, you wonder how it can accomplish anything. And of course, the God I'm talking about here, this so destructive, so really bad God, is the God of self. And what makes it so destructive is that self lies to self. Okay? Let me say that again. When you get to the point where I don't need my Creator to do this, I can do this on my own. In the words of our dear friend Haley, congratulations, you're now God. Okay? Let me try and explain it this way. If you ever reach a point, and all of us do it every day, one way or another, we're trained to do so. Okay? It doesn't matter what culture you live in, doesn't matter how dedicated to the Almighty you are, you still do this. You reach a point where I don't need God to do this for me. I can do it. Okay? You see where I'm headed with this, I hope. I hope that you understand. I'm not saying that we just sit down and let God serve us and cater to us and He comes and fixes our dinner. That's not what I mean. What I mean is we need to include God and follow His guidance, His concept of where we need to be, His design for our lives in whatever we do. It doesn't mean that, when I drive my car, right? If I'm pedaling the bicycle, God's not going to pedal my bicycle. I do that. But where I steer that bicycle, where I steer that car, hopefully I am following His guidance. I am on a path to where He's leading me. It's not about what I want, it's about what God wants. But sometime during the day, typically every day, we all do something. We all say something. We all think something other than what God would have us think or do or go or say or be. And I like I say, I'm as guilty of it as anyone. Sometimes I am my own worst enemy. I am my own worst offender. I'm working on it. I'm a work in progress. But let's be honest. Because of, we have spent all of our lives being trained to do just the opposite sometimes of what God would have us do. It's very, very difficult to break that habit. It's very difficult not to depend on self and put self on the same level as God. Now, it's easy for you to understand how self can destroy self, right? You can be self-destructive. But you can also be self-destructive in such a way that you explode when you self-destruct, and it destroys the people around you. If you are a influential person, I'll get to influence here in a second, but if you're an influential person, what happens is more people are influenced by your self-destruction. And if you are such a person, and I'll use Napoleon Bonaparte as an example, when he finally was able to self-destruct in such a way, it collapsed a nation. Adolf Hitler is another example. When he finally self-destructed, it collapsed a nation. These things happen. We see it over and over and over again. When I think that I am more important than my Creator, when I think I have reached a level of importance that I no longer need to rely on my Creator, I have substituted my Creator God for myself. Do you hopefully can follow what I'm saying here? Because coming from, and I know most of us, and I get it, most of us say, well, I only believe in one God. Well, yeah, you do. But let's think about this. Do you put, and I saw this a long time ago, it's called the frog method, okay? F-R-O-G. F-R-O-G. Now, the frog method simply means fully rely on God. You know, you don't do anything. I don't want to say you don't do anything for yourself, but I'm going to say don't do anything of your own mind. Okay? What you're going to do is you're going to completely and fully rely on your Creator. You're going to follow His footsteps where He leads, just like Noah did, okay, when he was building the ark. Followed those instructions completely. Just like Abraham did. When Abraham was leaving his father's home, his father's land, he was guided out and went where the Almighty directed him to go. You know, Moses, when Moses had his famous job interview at the burning bush on Mount Sinai, he walked away from there and he followed God's instructions completely. We see it all throughout Hebrew history. People who were willing to go where they were supposed to go, do what they were supposed to do. We get lessons the opposite way too, right? You know, we remember Jonah. He didn't want to do it and was forced to eventually. So we see that. But when we fully rely on God, it doesn't mean that we don't pedal our own bicycle. It doesn't mean that we don't steer and drive our own car, but we go where we are led. If we think about this, you know, there are people who become ill. They seek medical attention. A lot of times, our prayer is, you know, Lord, heal these people. They need to be healed. Let's take it a step farther. Instead of, Lord, you have to do this, how about, Father, what is your will in this? You know, do I need to pray for this person that you're going to heal them, or do we need to pray for these people that they reach the people that they are supposed to reach? How are you going to be glorified through all of this? I have friends now. One, I think he is just now getting out of the hospital, going to a rehabilitation center. He is quite ill. Okay, wonderful, wonderful person. Wonderful person. I have a feeling the Almighty is using this person to reach others. Another gentleman I know going through, just beginning some experimental cancer treatment. He was actually approved to become part of a group that would go through these experimental treatments. And I have to know, because this fella, I'm telling you, listens to this show every once in a while, and he is faithful. He knows and loves the Almighty, guaranteed. And it is absolutely possible that he is being directed and put into this position so that he can reach others to show his faith and how strong he is willing to be a spokesperson for his Creator. You know, will they wind up healed? Possibly. Possibly. And we really pray and hope that when the Almighty's done using them for whatever His purpose is, that He does do that. At the same time, there may be somebody that they can reach on a much deeper level going through the things they're going through. Okay? Because they are going through these things, they have their faith. Do you remember Job? Job was a man of such strong faith that the Almighty trusted him completely to defeat Satan. Never forget that. Job's faith was so strong, the Almighty trusted him to defeat Satan. Sometimes we're called to do that. Sometimes we're simply put in a position where we can reach people and speak to people and touch people where we wouldn't have the opportunity to do that any other way except to be going through what we consider terrible situation. But if we can use that terrible situation to demonstrate our faith, display our faith, and show our faith to others, then who receives the glory? Remember, it's not about what we want, it's about what the Almighty wants. And before I get into to being influential with that, what I really want to ask you, do you believe in miracles? Really, do you believe in miracles? Here's why I'm asking you this. Do you believe in the miracles you demand, or do you believe in the miracles that the Almighty wants to supply for you? Let me say that again. If I pray for a miracle, say, Father, you've got to heal these people, I'm demanding a miracle from my Creator. Maybe my prayer should be, Father, show me the miracle that you're going to use these people for. You see the difference there. If I demand a miracle, I am putting myself in the Almighty's place. But if I say, Father, you show me what your will is in this. You show me how you're going to use this. And I will do everything I can to back you up on it. I will glorify you. All I need to do is see your will. Show me what your plan is. Show me how we're doing this. I'm willing to go down this path, but you got to show me the path to go down. Hopefully you understand the difference in that. And it's not about me anymore and what I want. It's about you tell me where to go, I'll go. Just like Noah, just like Abraham, just like Moses, just like Gideon. Think about Gideon for a moment, and I've spoken about this before. Gideon was so willing to do what the Almighty wanted him to do, to go where he was sent, that the Spirit of the Almighty was able to put Gideon on and wear him like a coat. That is being fully dependent on God. All of those folks, they fully relied on God. They used that frog method. Now let me get back to this being influential. And I mentioned a fellow named Orpheus, who was a Greek god who first showed up around 500 BC. Okay? When Orpheus, and the people writing about Orpheus, I should say, the people writing about Orpheus were influenced by the Jewish folks once the Greeks invaded Israel. They were so influenced that we see writings where Orpheus had a conflict with a serpent, and the serpent had stolen his wife and taken her to the underworld. We don't see a conflict with a serpent until after the Hebrew or Jewish influence was able to make some impact on the Greek culture. Now this, in turn, helped force some of the policies of the Greeks that they wanted to change the religion, change that religious culture of Jews into Greek culture. So they tried to do everything they could to put an end to the Jewish religious system. But they weren't able to do that. These events led to the Maccabean Rebellion and ultimately to the defeat of the Greek army and to the events that today we know as Hanukkah. All of that being said, to say that the small little country of Israel was able to influence this Greek invading, occupying force to such an extent that what they figured out was, we've got to put a stop to this or we're going to be Jewish. Right? The Greeks said, no. We don't like the idea of one God. We like our many gods. We like, and you, by the way, you folks, you've got to accept what we say now. And it was a harsh conflict. And until just a couple of people stood up and said, no. We are for the Almighty. We are for His covenant with us. And, we will not deviate from that. We're going to stand, because what we are going to do is fully rely on God. We're not going to put ourselves as gods. We're not going to bow down to your gods. We're going to be fully dependent on this one Creator God. Now, when we think about influence today. We are influenced, we are bombarded by entertainment. Every time you turn on the television, open a magazine, read a book, turn the radio on, whatever your form of entertainment is, you are being bombarded by information. Somebody typically is going to be trying to sell you something. Somebody's going to try to convince you can't live without a certain product. Someone's going to convince you, oh no, you don't want that product over there, you want our product over here because we do this better than they do. Somebody's trying to influence you. When the Almighty decided to bring that mixed multitude out of Egypt, He brought them to Mount Sinai and he asked them, are you willing to be an influence on the rest of the world? And they said yes. Hopefully, when you accepted the Almighty, okay, yep, there's a God. Whatever you chose to think after that, because I know I speak to various people. I speak to Christians, I speak to Jews. So let's just stop with the Father for a second, okay? Not worry about anything else at the moment. When you made that conscious decision, yes, there is a God. I know it beyond any doubt. There's no anything in my being that says there's not a God. You have accepted that responsibility to influence the rest of the world. Now, how you gain that influence, how you promote that influence is completely up to you. See, some people promote that influence by knocking on a door and saying, can I tell you about Jesus? Well, I say that tongue-in-cheek and very sarcastically, but there's people that do that. Others simply live a lifestyle that is monotheistic, right? They fully rely on God. They just go through their everyday motions, going where they're supposed to go, going where the Almighty is guiding them, doing the things that He tells them to do. And I'm not, don't get this confused with you have this voice in your ear saying, no, don't buy that brand of canned peas, buy the other brand. That's not what I'm saying. That's not what I'm saying. Don't take this down as what in our modern our modern vocabulary would say, they're being influenced by the voices in their heads. That's not what I'm saying. I don't really think that the Almighty cares a whole lot about which brand of canned peas that you buy, but I can tell you He's going to suggest you very swiftly walk by the pork section. All right, and I'll just leave it at that. What we're looking at is, are you living the way you're designed to live? Because if you're living the way you're designed to live, if you are going to be fully relying on God, there's going to be some things you're going to notice. And that is, as you look around you, you're going to look different than the people around you. You're going to eat different than the people around you. You're going to even grieve different than the people around you. Okay? Because you're going to understand that death isn't final. Let me say that again. You're going to understand that death isn't final. Hopefully you've had some very good folks in your life that have directed you to a point where you have accepted there is a God, and you have accepted that this God needs you to live a certain way. Now, all I have to do is convince you that yes, that certain way is living the way that He designed you to live, using the skills that He has put into you to benefit the people around you. And it doesn't matter if you're a carpenter, a mechanic, a doctor, a lawyer. It doesn't matter if you can be a tailor or a seamstress. It doesn't matter if you can install cable television. It doesn't matter if you can dig wells. It doesn't matter if you can dig ditches. It doesn't matter if you're shoveling manure out of a cow stall, okay? Whatever your skill is, you use it to benefit the people around you. That way, you in turn are benefited, because I can guarantee you that it doesn't matter, it doesn't matter a little bit to the Almighty how much money you think you need to make. If you are completely dependent on Him, it's going to be there. I have talked to too many people, and I mean by now probably hundreds of people that have all told me the same thing. You know, it's always a story like, I didn't know if at the end of the month we were going to have enough money to have a place to live. But somehow, it was always there. Somehow, we always found a way. I've talked to people who have said, we knew going in that, I should back up. I've talked to people who have said when they had sick children that they knew going into this that there was a possibility that the child wouldn't survive. They knew going in there was a possibility. But by faith, they stepped in, and they were in that period of taking action while the child was alive, just like David did in 2 Samuel chapter 12. While the child still lived, I was fasting, I was praying, I was doing everything I could. In a couple of those situations, yeah, the child survived. In a couple of those situations, the child did not. But the thing is, the way those folks handled their grief, completely different than the way other people handle their grief. I've been in situations where I have spoken to people, and you wonder how these folks live day to day. And then you realize that they fully rely on God. They take it to heart. They understand what it means. And you know what? They're willing to say, it's not about me. It's about what the Almighty wants. It's about me being where it's about me being where He needs me to be, saying what He needs me to say, and me giving up myself to Him. Modern Christian churches like to promote it this way. You've got to die to self. Well, okay, but what does that mean? In practical application, what does that mean? It simply means not putting myself first, not doing what I want, not being the most important person in the world, not being Napoleon Bonaparte, not being Adolf Hitler. It means not what I want, but what my Almighty wants. You see, once we learn to fully rely on God, our needs are taken care of, because He's the one taking care of them. He's the one taking care of them. Once we decide, I can't do it. I tried it my way and it's not working. I tried it my way, it's not working. Trust me, I've tried it my way and it didn't work at all. But when I made that decision, I'm done doing it my way. I'm going to do it the way I was designed to do it. things started falling into place. Do I still mess up? Every day. Is there still times during the day that I say, you know what, God, I got this? I do. But at the same time, guess what? It's easier and easier every day, because what I can do is fully rely on my Creator. And when I do that, it's so much easier. Everything just kind of comes together. And I look back and I say, I don't know why I ever tried it my way. I really don't. Ladies and gentlemen, next time we're going to go into Revelation a little bit more. This is on a Monday now. Don't forget, Thursday nights we do it live. It's a different story. But on Mondays, I'd like to dig in a little deeper. And I'm going to explain to you why it was the 7 churches in Asia that were written to. Okay? Until then, have a wonderful, wonderful week.